Hi, if you don't know me, hi, I'm Susie Loom. I'm a stand-up comic and I also make these videos. And today we're going to be discussing why 80% of men are invisible. We're going to be looking at a Dr. K Healthy Gamer GG video. So a lot of stand-up, mainly older stand-up, does talk a lot about gender dynamics. So I thought it'd be interesting to talk to, to watch a video of someone who's an expert, you know, who's a very well-respected mental health practitioner, talk about things like, male issues. Because a lot of people end up discussing these things in the comments anyway when I react to certain stand-up clips. And I just feel like from someone who's able to talk on this, because I'm not a man. As much as people want to think of YouTubers are men, I'm not. If I were though, I would be very well endowed. But let's watch Dr. K be the GOAT once more, as usual.
What is the full spectrum of individuals that you've
What is a full spectrum? Zoom in on me. I'm kidding.
Time working with on a one-on-one basis or through your practice?
I worked with people out of MIT, incubators, CEOs, entrepreneurs, things like that. So a lot of high performance people, but then I've also worked with like losers, let's say.
Me.
So this is also more intensely. This is everything from 25-year-old kid who's living in his mom's basement playing video games all day to people who are even homeless. So I worked with like basically like the whole spectrum. And yeah.
You used the word losers there. You did little air quotes for anyone that can't see you right now. I'm really interested when you talked about incels as well, whether the way society is and the way that we're heading in terms of clarity over what it is to be a man has had any impact on those people that you referred to as incels. Like because we now have this digital world that we can live our lives in as a distraction from the real world. And there's now more confusion than ever over what it is to be a man and the role of a man in a, and then we look at the stats around suicidality. And I think in Europe, the biggest killer of men under the age of 45 is themselves currently. Is the shifting idea of what it is to be a man having an impact on people's sense of self and their purpose?
100%. So there's a crisis that's going on in men. And people think that this is new, but I don't think it's new. It's always been there.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when you said like, oh, the shift in men. I'm like, what? At first, I want to know what the shift is. You guys have specific thoughts on what he might have meant by that. I don't know exactly what he meant by that. It feels like, if anything, we are somewhat a little bit more open now to different like forms of things. Like a conversation that I assume has been helpful for men is the idea of female gaze versus male gaze, because like, and gaze, I mean G-A-Z, not the sexual preference. But I feel like a lot of guys have like learned that specific things are very male gazy, like being, super buff and specific like rizzy things and like pickup artistry things. Like, they're more perpetuated by men than they are by women. Like, what's the things like everyone says like, oh, it's like a thing in New York, right? Where it's like, oh, every girl's bi and they're into feminine men and masculine women. That's sort of, I guess, the beauty standard here to some extent. So
if you look at like, even 50, 60 years ago, 80% of suicides are still going to be men.
Yeah.
So historically, men have been killing themselves for like 100 years and no one's been paying attention.
Yeah.
We're just noticing now because the problem seems to be getting worse. So there's a couple of things that are really interesting to understand. So one is that if we look at what technology is doing to our brains, the first thing that it's doing is it is externalizing our attention. So if you look back, like let's say 1,000 years ago, as human beings, we spent a lot more time with ourselves. So let's say that you and I go out hunting, and then let's say you shoot an arrow at a deer and you miss, and then I shoot an arrow at a deer and I hit. So in this moment, I'm superior to you. And then we pick up the deer and we're carrying it back, and then we have about 2 or 3 hours to take that emotional insult and we kind of process it. We just give our mind space to process it, which it does automatically. Now, if you look at what happens in people's days, they don't actually have any time to process what happens to them because we are so constantly distracted by external things.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you're like this, but I was in this point where I was idiotically efficient. So I would wake up in the morning and I would listen to a podcast while I'm like doing my exercise or whatever. And then even when I'm cooking, I'm listening to a lecture. And then like when I'm walking to the train, I have earbuds in and I'm listening to a lecture there. On the train, I'm reading. I wanted my life to be completely efficient.
Oh yeah.
I didn't want to waste a single moment.
I used to be like that. So I used to, on like my commutes and stuff, I would be like writing stuff. And that's when I would get write shorts and TikToks and stuff like that. Every second that someone was next to me, I was almost inconvenienced by them because I was like, I could have been like reading. I could have been bettering myself, which was not great, but I also look back and I was like, damn, that was like a good time. But also I feel like I didn't get much better at things then. Now I think I'm getting better. I'm like actually sitting with things for longer. I think I was too much on the go then.
I literally listen to the news in the shower. It's
right. So we don't want to waste time. And so if you really think about it, where's the attention of your mind? Your mind is pointed outside of you. And so then what happens is once we do not pay attention to ourselves, we lose sight of our internal signals. Literally in the same way that if you raise a child in a dark cave, the photoreceptors in their eyes won't develop. They will atrophy. So anything that the mind does not get access to will start to atrophy. If I don't practice Spanish, I'm going to forget Spanish. The mind is very...
I do think like a little bit, it's hard to be alone. I don't know if you guys have experienced that, but I've talked to a lot of people who say, I don't want to be alone with my thoughts. When I'm alone with my thoughts, it's painful. Like I don't know, I can't say what the cause would be for that, but I've experienced that where it's like the moment you think too much about and I think I might have talked about this in the other Dr. K video. I think some people feel too much and some people don't feel enough. And I think personally, I know a few women who feel a lot, and I'm always trying not to be like that. I don't want to be so, and even men, I was just talking to one guy like that who's dating my friend. And like, if you're addicted to feeling sad, you're like, it's so, for lack of a better word, masturbatory. It's like, oh my God, I'm like so broken, right? So there's like a balance between feeling, but okay, then I think the solution to that is you feel, but you feel productively. So it's like reflecting for change rather than just reflecting for the sake of sitting in the feeling's sake. I'm not sure. I hope Dr. K speaks to that. But that's something like I stopped therapy and then I went back to it. And I like tried to find a new therapist who was very forward thinking. I was like, if I start crying and stuff, don't feel the need to be like, oh, let's sit with your feelings. No, don't indulge it. Be like, okay, so what do we do about that? What do we do about that? I'm like, I want to think forward. I want to think solution. Like I don't need to be sitting in my feelings personally. I don't. I do it too much. I'm too prone to it. Like, so I don't know what his thoughts are on that, but I think there's like a balance of we don't want to feel because it's hard, but also it can be unproductive to feel too much and be too in your feels and too like respectful. Like some people are like, I'm so respectful of my boundaries, and then they just like don't work, right? So I think there's like I'm sure most men are doing way too little, but I think it'd be interesting to see like what is the perfect balance of feeling your feels.
Brain is a very efficient organ. So as we externalize our attention, we lose sight of our internal signals. We don't know who we are anymore. And now if I don't know who I am, how do I figure out who I'm supposed to be? I pay attention to the outside. Where are the answers? They're on the outside. So this person is talking about masculinity. This person is talking about what it means to be a man. This person is talking about what it means to be a man. And now since I don't have any internal source of information, I'm trying to figure out what it means to be a man from the outside world. And this is when men get truly fucked, because what it means to be a man, we are getting all kinds of mixed signals. So on the one hand, it means being physically fit. On the other hand, it means being a provider. On one hand, it means having sex with as many women as you can find. On the other hand, it means having sex with just one woman and being a really solid man and being a good father. And then there's also people telling us that being a man means that you're shit, right? That you're toxic, that you're testosterone.
Right. Yeah. That's something that like, yeah, that's the tough thing. I feel like that's part of why I like making these videos, because for me, I feel like being close friends with guys, like I've always been like a bit of a tomboy. I'm also friends with women, because I feel like I've heard people say like it's a red flag when you're not friends with women. I'm also friends with women, but I'm friends with a lot of guys. And I think that has taught me a lot about like, I genuinely think very little makeup is prettier in men's eyes, because I've had so many men tell me that. They'll talk about another woman and I'm like, well, then you're not trying to flatter me, right? So I just see them in the wild, right? I see men in the wild and how they function and how they think, and a lot of the thoughts are not that toxic and are not that bad and are like earnest and the same. And I think what I want to do is I want to be able to give guys a little bit of that perspective into women, because I think I'm so grateful to my guy friends for helping me be way less doomer or generalize things about men. I feel like I genuinely do understand most men in like a healthy way, thanks to them. So I feel like a lot of guys just have limited, very close female friends, so they have these perceptions. And you know, like they'll see girls, like there's so much stand-up, right, going like, men are shit, and look, it's an easy laugh. I did it once in a set, it got crazy laughs, and then they were like, why did you cut that? And I was like, because that's not what I think. Like I don't want to do that. I don't want to get Yas points. So like I have one specific story of a guy who like like was weird to me, but I try to frame it as like, because he was kind of, I I kind of took it as a compliment. So I try to frame it like very nicely because I don't want to be that. I don't want to be getting cheap laughs from men suck. But also, yeah. So I think it's understandably got a lot of guys. I think generalize that all women are like that. Honestly, half of the women are saying that for Yas points. Like they're saying it for other girls to go, yes, queen, like men suck. They're not saying it because deep inside they really believe that. I think I don't think that's true. I think it's sort of like a performance of strength of by shitting on men you feel stronger. I don't think that's really what most women think. But I also know that I guess in my comment section I felt a lot of guys have that specific vision of feminism, and I think it's less widespread than the media. The media might make you think.
Level makes you violent, that you're evil, that you're privileged, that there's a patriarchy, all this kind of stuff. So we're getting all this information from the outside about what it means to be a man. And so the other, like, there are all kinds of interesting ramifications of this. So men in today's society are not allowed to complain. So if you complain and you're a successful person or a privileged person, everyone is going to think you're arrogant. Everyone is going to think, oh my God, who's this fucking guy? This guy doesn't know what my life is like. How does he have any right to complain? And even your mind will tell you this. You'll look at these people and you'll be like, yeah, I don't have a right to complain. But now we need to stop for a second and think about what it does to your psychology when you as a human being are not allowed to articulate your suffering. I've worked with people who've grown up in abusive households where children will say to their parents, Mommy, Daddy, I'm hurting. And the parent smacks them across the face. How dare you? You're so lucky. You don't realize the sacrifices I make for you. It's traumatizing to the child when they say, I am suffering and no one listens. This is what we're doing to the generation of men. People are saying, I am suffering. For 100 years, men have themselves. 80% are men. The most dangerous thing for a man under 45 is themselves. And these people have been literally themselves because no one has been listening to them. Yeah. So in the same way that you grow up with as a child in a household that's abusive.
Man, that makes me want to cry. I feel so sad. Yeah, I feel like I know a lot of people, like, yeah, whose parents are like, yeah, you're a boy, you can't feel. And like really them up. It's like so sad. I wish I could be like a boy mom to them, just like adopt those kids, because like it's so tough, because it's so tough to undo damage, you know, and like men are already taught to like be strong, so it's like hard for them to even initiate seeking out for help, and it's hard enough even when you are reaching out for help. Yeah, damn, that's sad.
Where no one takes you seriously, no one listens to your suffering, and now we even have successful men who are not allowed to complain. So the psychological impact is the same. Anytime you have a human being who is suffering in some way and they cannot find connection with another human being, they cannot find compassion with another human being, that person is going to feel isolated. And if you look at the statistics—
I feel like that's like been like a big issue for me. I'm like, I felt also very strong as like, oh, the role of like, not the role, I mean, obviously I can't talk to people individually or like that, right? But I feel like there's a certain responsibility, like being empathetic toward, I think, guys who have a very female fan base, understanding them, and women who have a you know, predominantly male or a highly male audience, to be empathetic toward like these things and understanding. And it does to a bad degree piss me off when I feel like people are just like treating their communities like amorphous blobs instead of real people with feelings. Like the things you do have consequences. Like whatever you do, like make sure it comes from like who you are as a person. Even if you make a mistake, like you are genuinely trying to like be the good you want to see in the world. I don't know. I think it's like pissed me off too much in the past, and I think I'm definitely over that, because I think everyone is mostly trying their best. But I think I see a lot of from both sides. It's like, yeah, you might have like a crazy fan who puts, you know, a female streamer in danger, and that's gonna like obviously get a lot more attention than like when she's having really positive interactions. But I think that's a narrative that like maybe the news are telling, but the streamer herself, as long as she kind of acknowledges like I have one or two crazy people that are like super kind of sexist and obsessed with me, but then I also have hundreds and thousands of people who are genuinely nice guys who are like just connecting with each other and me here. I don't know. Yeah, I feel like people are not aware enough of how their actions and their rhetoric around certain topics affects people, even myself, I think, at times.
On suicide, it's very interesting. So the number one thing that with another human being, they cannot find compassion with another human being, that person is going to feel isolated. And if you look at the statistics on it's very interesting. So the number one thing that correlates with male is not depression, and this is super scary. There's one study I saw recently that suggests that 50% of men who themselves have no history or evidence of mental illness.
Wow.
And this, I believe the statistic in my clinical practice, because I know what depression looks like. I know what bipolar disorder looks like. And half the men that I've worked with, at least, are not actually mentally ill. See, mental illness means a pathology of the mind, which means that the mind is malfunctioning. Most of the men that I work with, they're not, their mind isn't malfunctioning. They genuinely have a life that is no longer worth living. They're looking at things and objectively realizing that there's no way out of this situation. So they turn. So I know it's kind of like a very controversial statement, but I think that's what my clinical practice has shown, and there's some research to even back that up. So if we sort of look at what's going on with men, we're sort of, they have nowhere to turn to. And the number one thing that correlates with it is not mental illness, but is a sense of thwarted belongingness. So this is kind of like multivariate regression analysis. But basically what happens is what causes people to kill themselves is they try to connect with others and they get rejected.
Yeah.
So it's specifically a very specific research term called thwarted belongingness. So I try to belong to a group, and that group, or multiple groups usually, will thwart my attempts to join the tribe, to join the community. And this is what actually correlates a lot with suicidality. So what's going on with men right now is that we really don't allow them to suffer, you know, because then you're not manly. And we're so externalized with our attention that we're not connecting with ourselves. And so we're looking to other people to tell us what it means to be a man. But that may or may not work for you, right? That may have been what worked for them. So then we kind of get into this problem where we're disconnected from ourselves. And then like the world doesn't accept us. We're not allowed to suffer. And that's what creates the problem.
I think like a really annoying thing is that these discussions oftentimes center around, like, if we're talking about men's issues, well, women will come into the picture. And when in women issues, men issues come into the picture. I think obviously everyone has issues, right? And I think it's so detrimental to pivot people against each other and be like, right, but then when a woman feels that way, it does not matter how people react when a woman feels that way, you know what I mean? If people are empathetic, good. If people are non-empathetic toward men, bad. I don't think it's about like a comparison, right? Every person, every gender, anything is gonna have like benefits and downsides. So I think that's the biggest thing that's like annoying, because it makes it really hard sometimes to have these discussions, because sort of like, so like a man will bring up a woman and then suddenly a bunch of women are like, yeah, but every time we talk about men's issues, women have to come up and be criticized, and then they start hating on men and like worsening the issue. So I think like the major things I love how Dr. K, he just really keeps it like, this is true facts. This is a real issue. It's not in relationship to women, right? Like it's a real problem with men. The conversation's not centered around women. So I think that's like it's just so helpful. I think it'd be so much easier for a lot of women who are, no, because I understand why men might be bringing women to the conversation. I do have a degree of like empathy to understand why they're doing that, why it hurts them more. But I think a lot of women, you know, won't, right? It's not, like if you're feeling attacked, you're feeling attacked. I think people react how they do when they feel attacked. But yeah, so that's like the big thing that I'm like, it just so helpful to have these conversations separate and just like focusing on the issue at hand instead of comparing people and turning people against each other, because at the end of the day, like it is an issue. Like it is just an issue and we should all care about it. The other thing is, yeah, I felt that way. Like I did feel like, you know, a lot of periods in my life I was just like, I'm rejected by this community, I'm rejected by this community, I'm rejected by this community. Like when I first started doing stand-up, I actually felt so rejected by the comedy community that I just like didn't go out, and like I recently started making friends with people because I just felt I've been feeling so lonely and like so like just by myself that like I was just like, I'm gonna go out and go to like comedy things and watch people and support people because I feel alone and it distracts me. So initially I guess was a bad thing, was me going out of my body, right, for validation, but I think it caused me to see people so frequently that I started like finding one or two people who are like weird like me, right? And when you start talking to enough people, you're like, wow, like there's so many weirdos out there. There's so many people who are slightly weird like you. But when I looked at the mass of comedy in New York, I was like, oof, the like group, right, the in group was like scary to me, and like I was like I don't fit in, it's not worth it. But when you start looking at individual people, I think it's way easier to find a connection with one or two people. And look, I don't need to be popular, I don't need to be liked by everyone, but I think most people can find one or two people they really click with. So my best friend right now, he used to be a gaming journalist, and I like was like in the esports industry, and we met like a few years ago through like a random super dorky gaming event, and he was writing like this like article about like hentai, and I was like, I think that's great, and we talked, and now we're pretty close friends. It's like we're bonded over like we really like talking about hentai, and like we're very different people. He's like much older, he has a like whatever cool journalist career, I'm like this dweeby comedy content creator, but like we clicked over like, oh, we like talking about this weird shit. And I think you'll meet a lot of people that you like don't expect to if you think of individuals, but if you're trying to like fit into like a group of influencers. I don't fit into the influencer friend group, the VTubers. I don't fit into comedy. But if you just look for one-on-one connection, I would assume, at least from anecdotal experience, that that's just like easier. You'll find enough points if you look at one person, even if the collective feels unfriendly.
What is the remedy to this?
So I think the first thing is we must reconnect with ourselves, right? So when you're kind of saying like, why does everyone think, oh, I need to like achieve this, I need to make this money and things like that. Where did you learn that you should do all that? You learned all that from the outside. Instagram, right? So we get fed all of these ideas because if you look at all these influencers, what are they doing? They're never crying. They're smiling.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them will even pay very attractive women to take pictures with them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, some of them are crying, but they're crying and uploading it for ulterior motives, right?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of them are genuinely suffering too. But then it's also like, I mean, there's all kinds of weird stuff going on. So one thing is like people say that we don't allow men to be emotional.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, but people say, oh, men are allowed to cry. So this is something that I experienced even in my marriage, where we allow men to cry, but we don't allow men to be angry. But why is it are men no longer allowed to be angry? Just think about it for a second. So anger is just a completely normal emotion, right? But if I'm in a situation where I'm in an argument with my wife and I feel emotion A and I express emotion A and she feels emotion B and she expresses emotion B, these two things should be equal, right? We as both human beings get to express what we feel. Now, in the case of me expressing anger and her expressing sadness, she's crying and I'm yelling. Suddenly, I become a villain.
It's so interesting. I saw a viral tweet yesterday. It was someone Googling, my wife is yelling at me, what should I do? And then my husband is yelling at me, what should I do? When they Googled, my husband is yelling at me, what should I do? Domestic violence helpline comes up as like a Google pop-up. When you Google, my wife is yelling at me, what should I do? Nothing comes up.
Yeah.
Because obviously, as you said, in the case of villainization, I know that most domestic violence comes from men, but it's interesting that we see the emotion, we interpret the emotions entirely differently because of that.
Absolutely, right? So we as a society will say like, oh, men need to be in touch with their emotions, but not anger. And then this is what really screws men, because as men, we are socialized and conditioned to only feel anger. This is the only emotion you are allowed to feel as a man growing up. And this is the one emotion that gets demonized when you're older. So I'll give you a simple example. So like I used to get bullied a lot, right? So when I get bullied in school, like what am I supposed to do, Stephen?
In school, well, it depends if you can fight back.
Absolutely, right? It's fighting back. Like you didn't say talk to the teacher. You didn't say ask for help. You didn't say cry about it, because if I cry about it, what's going to happen, Stephen?
You're going to get bullied more.
Absolutely. So we turn every emotion. So men experience anger as something called an umbrella emotion. We literally suppress and are conditioned to suppress all other emotions except for anger. And then if you talk to men about their experience of life, anger is always the first thing that comes out of their mouth.
Yeah.
Someone breaks up with you. How do you feel about it? Do you feel ashamed? No, that's not what we say. I feel pissed off. How could she do this to me?
Yeah.
And then we vent that anger on the internet, and then this turns into misogyny, right? And then we get demonized for it. And it's not that there isn't, we should be harshly judged if we act on those kinds of emotions. I'm not saying that that's the case.
Yeah.
But what we also need to consider is that the men who are saying these kinds of toxic things are saying that for a reason. This is because of their upbringing. This is because of the world that they lived in, right? So we're conditioned to only experience anger. Even sadness gets turned into anger. Shame gets turned into anger. Fear gets turned into anger, right? So if I'm afraid of something happening, what do I need? I need to man up, get angry, right? Like, let's go, son, let's go. This is the emotion that we tap into.
Right. This is a very interesting topic to me. Okay, so I did want to look up something real quick. Anger as a secondary emotion. Yes, anger is often called a secondary emotion because it's a response to other more vulnerable emotions. So there's an article from the Manhattan Center of Cognitive Behavior talking about this. Anger is sometimes more complicated than it seems. It can be a secondary emotion. I think anger itself, from what I remember, and I remember Dr. K talking about this in a different video, which is why I'm like, this is, he's trustworthy. I think anger anger, from what I remember, anger is a genuine feeling. I think he might get onto that, but it's also a secondary emotion. And I think he kind of got to that, is like, a lot of times it is a genuine feeling, and it is a feeling, you know, everyone feels, right? And it's normal as long as you're not acting on it in an abusive way, like hitting someone. But it's also a cover up for other emotions, so it's sometimes hard to tell. Yeah, I do think I do get a little bit turned off by anger. Definitely not like, romantic sense, like turned off, but as in like anger from men can be very scary and very off-putting to some extent, because how quickly one can go from yelling to hitting. I think, I've seen things in the comedy community where a guy got annoyed at a woman and then immediately started yelling at her about how she deserved to get sexually and he was gonna do it, So I think a lot of red flags go out due to like people's previous experiences with anger. But I also like where like what was trending on TikTok was that Rihanna song, "I'm breaking dishes off your head," and all the women are like, "Yeah, I love breaking dishes off of men's heads." So we can't be hypocritical about that. Like, what the fuck? We should not be okay with women go like, "Yeah, I want to break some dishes off of men's heads." But mostly I think it's sad. It's like I think when I've had guys around me feel anger, I don't know if I've always had the best response, but I do try to ask, like, what else might you be feeling? What other things, like, where does that anger come from, so I can actually understand it instead of just get defensive. But it is very easy to get defensive. That's hard. I think it's hard to, I think as women, we're also taught, like, you gotta have self-respect, and I really don't. I really don't. People can step all over me and I'll cry and apologize. Like, I really don't, because I just want to be a good person. I really do. At the end of the day, I really don't care about taking an L if I'm trying to do the right thing. I will let people be pretty mean to me, because I understand people get mean sometimes. Everyone's a little bitchy or mean sometimes, whatever. I won't hate you for life because you were mean to me, but I go very far to the point where I've been taken advantage of, I think. So it's hard, I think, I don't know if we have enough of if people know like a reliable resource of like, what should your response be if someone starts yelling at you? How can you be empathetic and positive but also not be a doormat? I think it's hard to find that line, and I think a lot of women or people don't have the experience. To know what that line is. I think I'm too young. I think I don't have the laps around the world. I don't know the expression to really know how to not be abused, but also not, to some extent, be abusive back and be repressive and problematic,
Right? So we're conditioned to only experience anger. Even sadness gets turned into anger. Shame gets turned into anger. Fear gets turned into anger. Right? So if I'm afraid of something happening, what do I need? I need to man up, get angry, right? Like, let's go, son, let's go. This is the emotion that we tap into to overcome fear. So we don't feel any of those other emotions, and we're left only feeling anger.
At the very heart of aggression, I heard someone say to me once that at the very heart of aggression is some kind of insecurity. But for men, when they encounter that insecurity, they only know how to sort of manifest it as aggression.
So I wouldn't agree with the first thing, that at the heart of all anger is insecurity, but I would absolutely agree with the second thing, that the only way we know how to respond is with anger. Because
here's the exact quote, I just found it. "The source of aggression is insecurity. As we are unconsciously aware that our position in life is never secure, people feel increasingly insecure and helpless, so they will be increasingly aggressive and confrontational at a personal and a social level."
So let's tunnel down into that for a second. Okay, so I think that is true on some level, but also I would disagree. So the first thing is that we have parts of our brain, even animals feel anger. But I think that, like, when two dogs are fighting over territory, I don't think that that's born of some kind of identity of insecurity, right? So if we really look at like the evolutionary purpose of anger, this is my opinion, is that anger is the emotion that we feel to protect our territory.
Yeah.
It's a protective emotion. So if I slap you across the face, what's the first thing that you're going to feel? It's going to be anger.
Yeah.
So if I insult you, you're going to feel angry. It's fascinating the way that it works. So anger causes our thoughts to be faster. Anger causes our peripheral vision to collapse to 30 degrees. So I only see what's in front of me.
I also think anger, I've learned to feel a lot of anger, and then I lost it, which is great. But I think anger is the most prideful feeling I felt, which is like, you're doing, like wake up, you're doing a wrong thing. And it's I think the most inefficient way. I think it will give you like a sense of like, I guess like strength. I think when I felt anger, it's like I can like tunnel vision on like a goal, but it's also so inefficient. Like I studied acting, and like in acting, you have like objectives and tactics, right? So if in the scene, I have like a few objectives, right? Like I want you, let's say my overarching scene objective is to get you to say you love me. You might try, and we don't talk about emotions in acting because we want to be more active than that, but you might try bullying, you might try demeaning, you might try chastising, you might try teasing, but you also might try pulling, like pulling in, you might try hugging, even if it's not physical, right? It's like an action with your words, but oftentimes you're gonna try like 20 different ones before your character gets their scene objective. But if you're just trying the more aggressive ones, likely the scene's, you know, it's gonna end with the character not getting what they want. So I guess I've felt it in my skin, being like, well, I'm angry, so it's like I'm stronger, I'm standing, but nah, dude, like I should have cried, I should have like taken a second to feel all the other things that I was actually feeling, and allowing myself to like really get at the core of like, why am I so angry about this? But yeah, I guess like I felt that I can understand. It's like it is a stronger emotion to feel. Like women are like, he cheated on me, I'm so mad at him. I'm like, no, you're destroyed, you lost your sense of self, you are anguished, you are hopeless about society as a whole. Like there's so many other feelings you're feeling, but the stronger girl bossy thing is to be like, what a dick, you know what I mean? But that's not the full extent of what we're feeling. So I think women also feel it too, and I think it's just as bad when we feel it.
And it also makes me less sensitive to what anger causes our peripheral vision to collapse to 30 degrees. So I only see what's in front of me. And it also makes me less sensitive to pain. So like my nociceptors will actually like start to be suppressed when I feel angry, right? So if I get into a fight, I'm going to feel it tomorrow, but like while I'm getting hit, I'm not going to feel it. So I don't think it's born of all insecurity. I think anger is simply an evolutionary response. It's something that we experience to protect ourselves. That's why we feel angry, right? So if I attack baby bear, mama bear is going to come out angry. So it's really a protective emotion. Now, I agree with the second part of the statement 100%, that when we feel insecure, especially as men, the only way we are taught to deal with our problems is through anger, right? So if I'm feeling insecure, if I'm feeling ashamed of myself, if someone's bullying me, what do? I put them in their place, right? I don't try to make peace. I don't complain to someone because no one's going to take me seriously, right? I have to stand up for myself.
So we've got the first point there about how we remedy this challenge, which is about self-expression, more self-expression. That's what I heard.
Not self-expression, introspection.
Introspection, getting to know ourselves.
Right. So it's very simple. So if you look at your idea of what it means to be a man, what percentage of that idea comes outside of you? And what percentage of that idea comes from within you?
About 90% comes from outside of me.
And that's why 90% of people, we're 90% fucked.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, and if you look, and I'm sure you know this, and you've probably done this too, if you look at where is the goodness in your life, where does it come from, Stephen? It doesn't come from what other people have told you. They may have told you something, but then you looked within yourself and then you found that to be true.
Yeah.
The goodness in you, the motivation, the really good motivation in you, not chasing things, but the duty that you have, you know, everything that you really strive for, all that good stuff comes from inside you. And the problem is that we live in a world that pulls our attention away from ourselves.
Oh, shit. What?
If you love the Diary of a
Any more? Oh, there's a whole clip. The clip is very long. I'll link it below and you guys can watch the whole thing. Look, I think just Dr. K is just such a good resource on just mental health and anything, honestly. I think he's awesome. But I guess the takeaway he's trying to do is you gotta look inward. How do we look inward? I guess let's watch the full video. But I think, I mean, something I'm trying to do is I'm trying to be a little less on my phone. I was talking to my therapist this week of I get into these like pretty bad mental health cycles where it's just like I'm just like constantly checking it all the time, and I've been feeling a lot of like pain physically from anxiety. So I'm trying to check it less. I'm trying to like, I mean, making these videos is great for me because I'm like really locked in and I'm having a lot of fun, and I'm just trying to go watch videos or really be locked in on work when I'm doing that. But yeah, I think for me trying to be out of my phone a little bit more has been pretty helpful, and everyone says that, but it is so hard because there's such good there as well. Freaking Big A, my favorite channel, or Healthy Gamer, they're all on YouTube, and I fucking love YouTube. I actually don't think watching YouTube, okay, this is my hot take, I actually don't think, I might have said this before, I feel very strongly about it, I don't think watching YouTube is that bad for you. A lot of their pretty informative videos out there, and it's oftentimes you're learning about your interests, which builds up your sense of self, IMO. I think it's more like mindless TikTok or Reels or Instagram or Reddit or like 4chan scrolling, you know, that I think kind of fucks with people. But I don't know, let me know your hot take, and And yeah, I mean, I hope if you have like suggestions of more things that I can like watch or do, even to like create like space, like I genuinely like care about these things. Like I genuinely do. And, I want to make sure I'm not was like being a grifter. I don't know. I'm like, oh, it's because I want you guys to like me and like, you know, it's not that. It's really not. If you see to my personal life, I am pathetic to the extent that I will go through like to help guys around me have a voice and like and feel heard. I will like call me whenever. I will be there at your doorstep being empathetic and like I guess not pathetic because I stand by it and it's my morals and something I care about doing. But I generally do think, yeah, I think the same way that I would like you guys to be empathetic toward my troubles, I want to be empathetic toward yours. And yeah, if there's anything I can do, honestly, tell me. Or if I was off the mark here and I didn't quite understand your personal perspective, let me know in the comments. But yeah, this was great. I love Dr. K. I'll keep watching his stuff. He's my goat. He's my goat. I think he's amazing. He's great. And yep, but he's married. So, okay. Bye, guys.